Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the How to Film Weddings podcast. It's a brand new week and we are stoked, but I'm joined by my best good buddy, Mr. Nick Miller. Nick, hello.
Hey, hello. What is it?
How are you?
I am
not a lot.
I'm doing well. I'm doing good. I can't, nothing for me to complain about. Doing great. You?
I can't complain either. It's a great day. It's a new week. We just had our friends Kelley and Taylor on from the Level Up Co., the Level Up podcast, a luxury wedding filmmaking brand. And I've been a big fan of Taylor and what she's been doing over at the Level Up Co. for the last few years with her mastermind groups and different things. And then recently I saw that she had just added Kelley from 618 Studios, who also runs Illum Lutz. Like, they came together with kind of like the girl version, the luxury version of How to Film Weddings. And people are like, wait, why would you have someone on that does similar to what you do? Because we love helping people. We love education, and I love what they've been up to. And so, yeah, we took a few minutes to talk about them and talk with them about that and getting into the luxury market. Nick, what do you have to add?
Yeah. It was a good little recording session, and Kelley and both Taylor had some really amazing things to say. Just kind of about going into the luxury space and how you should treat people and taking advantage of the situations you're given. So we're excited to have them on the podcast. Yeah. What do you got?
And I was going to say this. I wanted to throw it out there. If you haven't heard of our good friends over at VidFlow, Nick, if you want to get into some luxury stuff, you want to take it to the next level with client delivery, you want to check out howtofilmweddings.com/VidFlow. They're sponsors of ours. They're amazing. We use them for all of our films. You can upload your films in 4K. You can deliver them. There's an app for your phone, for your TV. It's the best way to deliver your wedding films. So check out howtofilmweddings.com/VidFlow if you want to take your wedding film delivery to the next level. So without further ado, Nicholas Deep Nuggets Miller, let's jump into this week's podcast.
Let's go.
All right. Well, welcome Taylor and Kelley from the Level Up podcast back to the How to Film Weddings podcast. How are you two? Say hello to the listeners. Who are you? Say hello.
Hi, guys. I'm Kelley Gilster. I'm one half of 618 Studios. So I'm a part of a husband and wife team. So, yeah.
And I'm Taylor Petrinovich. That is how it is pronounced. And I am from Taylor Petrinovich Cinematography.
Yes.
And one half of the Level Up brand with Kelley. And we're super excited to be here. So thanks for bringing us on.
Yes. Whenever we were, I was watching, you had Kelley kind of show up on some of your stuff a few months ago. It's like, hey, I wonder if Kelley's going to join Taylor's podcast. Taylor, why don't you talk a little bit about you started the podcast a little bit ago. Why don't you give the listeners just a little bit of background of maybe your story, how you got that going?
Yeah, so I started filming weddings in 2017. So this is my seventh season, I guess. And in 2020, right before that big worldwide event thing happened, I started a podcast. I love education. I actually have my bachelor's degree in early childhood education, and I just really like being in that role, I guess, of teaching and helping, and that is just something that I feel like needs to be a part of my life in some way or another. So I started the podcast, and then in October of 2020, I launched Elevate Mastermind just a few months before you guys launched the How to Film Weddings Mastermind, actually. And I took a group of filmmakers through that, and I launched it a few times, had some good success. I think that the group itself had a lot of success in all the filmmakers leveling up, and I'm really close to some of my original students. Even today, we download, I don't know if you guys know the app Marco Polo, but it's you leave video voicemails back and forth. So we do that all the time. It's so fun. But around summertime last year, I was just finding myself getting really lonely. I don't know, running a film business and an educational brand, by myself. I was just finding myself alone a lot and in my head. And I knew that I wanted to continue with the Level Up business and podcast and offerings. But I knew that for it to be sustainable for me, something was going to have to change. And actually, John, we were texting in like early December and we were chatting about education stuff. And I was like, I don't know, I want to do this, but I don't think I can keep doing it alone. And actually, that was like the light bulb moment that I had. And a few days into 2023. So like this is like a brand new thing, right? So this is February, and I want to say on like January 4th or something, I texted Kelley and I was like, hey, this is going to sound really random, but would you be interested in coming on, being like 50-50 partner with me? I'm totally open to like a full rebrand. We can change the name. I don't really care. I'm not like attached to any of it. I want you to feel like it's equally yours as it is mine. And I think that we are in alignment with that. And Kelley, you can kind of like take it from there.
Yeah, so I always kind of like watched what Taylor was doing. A couple times I came on as a guest in her mastermind or speaker, and or just like did some stuff through Loom Lutz, like giving them some, tutorials or things like that. And so I was also just like in the group because I had been a speaker in the group. And so just watching what she was doing, like I was so amazed. Like I think I even said to her once, I'm like, how are you doing this? Like you're just like, it's so like well put together, like what you're providing for everyone, and you're so organized. Like, and I felt like education was always something that I felt like I was missing in my life too. We've been in the industry this is our 13th year. So I just felt like it was like time to give back to like our sector of the industry through education. And I felt like there was a lot of like holes missing in filmmakers not really understanding like the right avenues to level up their business into the luxury market. And I saw that Taylor was doing it too. And I just always admired it. And when she sent me that text, I was like just getting out of the gym. I like look at my phone and I was like, I just like called her. Like, I don't even think you asked me to call you. You were just like, if you want to set up, if you just want to set up a meeting. And I think I just like skim. And I'm just like, yes, in my mind. And I just called her and she's like, hi. And I was like, hi, I just got your text. Yeah, I totally want to do this with you. And it just like came right at the right time. And we just right away just started going with it. But I think one of the things that I first asked her was like, why me? Like there's so many other filmmakers out there that are probably like in higher levels of the luxury market or have more experience in education. Like my husband and I have done like one-on-one mentor sessions here and there upon request, but it's nothing really that we've like fully pushed forward with. So I don't know, Taylor, what'd you say? You were like, I don't know,
said,
you're just a doer.
You're a doer. You don't, I've noticed that you don't sit around in like idea mode or planning mode too long. Like you launch things, like you launched a Loom, you have your home video course, like you're a doer, and I need a doer to be with me because I'm a doer. So it's a good
I can't relate to that, Nick. Can you relate to that at all?
No.
We were saying, like, Taylor and I were texting or audio messaging each other, and Taylor was like, it's kind of like we want to be like kind of the female version of what you and Nick are doing. Like, we really appreciate. And I was just like, it's funny that if you're watching on YouTube, it's like Nick and I have these dark masculine backgrounds, and then you two ladies have like these bright, light, and airy backgrounds that are really appealing. And like, anyway, it looks like a checkerboard on my screen, but just watching, and becoming friends with you, Taylor, and like seeing you at Venture a couple years ago, and always being kind of in your corner and trying to like behind the scenes, always trying to just like say, hey, you're killing it, you're doing a great job, keep pushing, keep growing, like don't let anybody tell you can't do this, and like just always trying my best to encourage other educators. And I remember you texting me that saying, like, I don't know, it's just kind of lonely. And I think I said something like, yeah, I don't know how you do it alone. Like I couldn't do this without Nick or whatever. And so then a couple weeks later, seeing like all these things, I was like, I wonder if this is like a 6-month plan and I'm just a dork or anyway. So it's really cool. Once I saw, and I sent you a message after I saw some of your teasers. I'm like, okay, is Kelley joining you? Is that happening? So that's very exciting. So.
Yeah. And I have to say thank you. Like you have always been so encouraging and helpful and like really rooting for me. And I say thank you a lot, I feel like, but I want to publicly say thank you. Honestly, I don't know if I would have continued doing this without your encourament. Like, it's meant a lot, and I'm basically trying to make you cry right now, but
it's getting
you
close.
make me cry all the time, so
Good.
it means a lot.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, well, we're really glad to have you guys on. And one of the core things that we've always wanted to do at How to Film Weddings is, elevate the industry. And that's not just like we don't want to elevate the industry just through How to Film Weddings, right? Like, that's the only place where people can learn. And that's like, we don't want to do that. We have always been, if there are other educators, if there are other people that are doing good things that will help the industry. And we know that, our two audiences, I'm sure there's going to be overlap and that kind of stuff, but there are going to be people that are like your people, right? That aren't necessarily attracted to the stuff that John and I are putting out, and vice versa. And it's really cool to see, I think that a lot of people have this, mental block, or they get in their own way of thinking, oh, there's already someone doing this thing, so I can't do it. Like Kelley, I think of the LUTs that you put together, and you're like, there's lots of people that have LUTs and lots of people that have been putting this stuff out. And I'm sure, I'm glad that you've done it. I think I told you this the last time you were on, but I started following you guys a long time ago, and we would always comment how your color looked the most like film of anybody's video I had ever seen at that time. And so, like, you have that gift for that. And so it's really, I'm glad that you guys have connected and you guys have come together and do that. And we are absolutely thrilled that you have come on, and our audiences are overlapping a little bit here just to talk with each other and that sort of stuff. So we're excited to see what is going to happen with you guys. John is messaging me on our little chat that we have here, and I am having a tough time ignoring what he's saying. So.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I was just building certain things. For those out there that are listening, Taylor's been on our podcast before. Kelley has been on with her husband before in 618 Studios. You have Illum LUTs. You have all these things going on. What now is the difference with your podcast and your brand? Because it's the Level Up brand. You guys are doing lots of different things. You've rebranded. You're in the middle of doing some rebranding. Tell us kind of what all is going on behind the scenes. What direction are you heading? Who are you trying to help?
Kelley, do you want to take this one? Okay. So, yes. Essentially, our mission is to first show every filmmaker who has any interest in entering the luxury market that it absolutely is possible for them. I am not shy in saying, like, I don't feel like I'm, like, super talented or special or in any way. So if I can do it, like, literally anybody else can do it. So if you want to charge more money and enter a space where the art can be really fulfilling just because of the design and it's a high-level event, we want to be your guides. We have both successfully done it for our own businesses, and we really just, like, want to pull anybody who is interested in that sector of the market along for the ride. So we do have a lot of really exciting things that we are kind of working on. We are very firm in our belief in transparency, and so we are working on a course for filmmakers who want to enter the luxury market. So that will be coming out later this year. We're very excited.
Come on.
But we also want to create a ton of free resources for those who are just dipping their toes into maybe wanting to enter the luxury space. Kelley, do you want to talk on that?
Yeah, so obviously our podcast, so the Level Up Co., which Taylor, when she approached me, she asked if I would co-host it with her. And so we're just talking about, like, the misconceptions of the luxury market, or just helping filmmakers understand, like, what is luxury, like redefining that, and how they can align their business and just their practices to serve the luxury market. So I think a lot of things too that is, like, a big, like, hurdle to get over. And I know that I myself had this internal dilemma, was like, moving from, like, your client is your client to now you have, like, this planner who's, like, also kind of your client, and, like, how do you navigate that, and what is the industry standard for that? And so just kind of, like, like, pulling back the curtains on, like, this is how, like, you get in front of planners, this is how you get referrals from planners, like, this is how you're going to level up your business. And so just talking about all things about that. We have, like, various guests on who are in that sector of the market, and just talking to them about like how they've gained those referrals, what has changed in their business from when their business felt more mainstream to now it's more luxury. And so, the podcast is a great thing. We're working on a YouTube channel. Taylor also has her Level Up community. So like back to a Facebook community that, I just think it's so important when our businesses are so like we're in a room editing all the time alone. Like there's not a ton of community in our space. And so I just think that like the growth and sharing like our successes and struggles and seeing things in a different way through a Facebook community is really helpful too. So inviting all who want to be a part of that are welcome. And then we're also just working on a shop where starting to focus on communication. So like how to communicate with those luxury clients through like email templates, and then also other ones of like when you're, conversing with a planner and you don't have, contact really with the clients, how are you managing those conversations to get to know the client in that way where they're kind of you're kind of a third party person. So yeah, just kind of covering all those topics. And like Taylor said, like letting people know that like it's not impossible to enter and there's so much room in the luxury market. I always kind of talk about it as like a pyramid, right? So we have like entry level mainstream down here that's filled with like so many filmmakers, and then you kind of like rise. And once you kind of get to the upper part of the pyramid, there's, things that you have to do within your business to make it there. And so I think that's why like it becomes like few and far between like rise to that, part of that pyramid. And so just kind of, letting people in on like the proven workflow, like how, like what is the proven system that gets you there. And so that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I think that's really great. And it's, one of those things where people want to enter the luxury space or they want to take a step up. And it's, the idea, and we've said this before, that, as long as I create really great films, like that's the only thing that matters. And, probably the higher up that pyramid that you go, I mean, you have to have great work and it has to be solid work, but that truly matters less and less in regard to all of the other things that you need to do. And I know that, just learning how to do that and how to communicate and how you respond and what you should respond, and maybe not writing emails in a way that you would write them, but how you should write them, or, there's lots of different nuances and lots of different things. And so that's definitely something that whenever people want to enter that space and like, I don't know what to do. Well, it starts with some of these little things that you guys are sharing. So I think that's great. I love it.
I want to add, if it's possible here, like the idea that like luxury, people hear this, it's becoming more of like almost a buzzword, or people are like, they think, like luxury means this, or you have to do these kinds of things. You can't be creative anymore. You don't have any, relationships with the couples, any of that kind of stuff. And then also just like, the idea of like how or where do I even begin? Sure, I would like to make more money. What does that look like? What steps do I need to take? So I'm sure you're covering a lot of those kinds of things. One of the things I wanted to make sure we cover here today is talking about making, like if somebody is interested in like raising their prices, raising the quality of their work, moving into something that you would consider the luxury market. Maybe if you could give a little definition of what you guys would say the luxury market is, and then maybe your stories individually, however you'd like to do it, of like where you've gotten to, because in your 6 years, Taylor, and I know you're doing a little longer, Kelley, like where you're at right now in the market, and then maybe some advice just like on how to like take those steps towards that.
Yeah. Kelley, do you want to go? Want me to go? We're working out this who talks first thing.
See, Nick's just used to John always talks first while he thinks. And then John's quiet and Nick. Go ahead. Whoever. Taylor, okay. Why don't you? Okay.
I'll go. Okay. Yeah. So I definitely agree. Luxury is definitely one of those words that has essentially lost its meaning because it's so overused. So to give it a definition so that we're all kind of on the same page, Probably the most tangible thing to talk about is price point. So a luxury event is typically like an overall wedding budget beginning closer to like $250,000 and up. There's essentially no cap, right? People can spend as much as they want. And I would say for film, it's typically starting around $10,000 as like an introductory price, and it can go all the way up to $40,000. But I would say there are different tiers of the luxury market that a lot of people are not aware of. So the lower or like entry level market would be like a filmmaker who charges 10 to 12. And then there's 12 to 16 as like the mid-level luxury, and then 16 and up is like ultra luxury. If you want to look at it from a price point like situation. And I don't know about you guys, but when I first heard some of these numbers, my mind was like blown. I had no idea that people were charging this amount. And sometimes in various Facebook groups, of course not yours because yours is so great, but people will talk about pricing, and I've seen people be honest saying like, oh, I charge $8,000 or $9,000, and people kind of like hating on that and being like, they're lying. There's no way that's true. But we're here to tell you that's true. You can absolutely charge these prices. In just a few years. Like if you started now working towards a goal of charging $15,000, like in just a few years you could be there absolutely no problem, as long as you followed a proven system, right? And then I would say the scope of the event are typically multi-day events. There's usually multiple events, not just like a rehearsal dinner and the wedding day, but I did an event last August where I arrived on site on a Friday at 9 a.m. We did the bridal luncheon for 3 hours, right into the rehearsal dinner, right into the welcome party. So it's 3 events, and then another 14-hour day for the wedding day. And so they're in scope, like really large, multifaceted events that you definitely need a plan for and build a team around. But yeah, right now my starting price is $12,000 and I'm averaging around 15. Yeah, I think I'm done talking now. Kelley, you can take it.
I was going to say, Taylor, her trajectory of her business is insane. Like, I think you guys could probably agree too. Like the fact that she's entering her 7th year and starting at $12,000, averaging at 15. Like we actually just did an episode like 3 weeks ago, and I don't even think we knew what each other were charging. And so like I've been in the industry like twice as long, and I was like, we're starting at 10, and she's like, I'm starting at 12. And I was like, oh my gosh, you charge more than me? Like it was just like a funny like moment as far as like, wow. And then I booked a few more weddings, and then it was time for me to raise my rates. So I'm like, I'm going to raise them to match Taylor because she's like my new goal. So now I'm starting at 12 as well. But kind of going back to what Taylor said about like your mind was blown when you heard those numbers. I feel like we've been in the luxury space for a few years now, but I think I was kind of like blinded to the fact there was like anything past like I knew that there was like the Jose Villa weddings and things like that, but I never knew like the numbers of those until like last year. One of my friends did he photographed a really amazing event, and he was like, oh yeah, it was like a $1.6 million wedding. And I was like, that exists? Like I didn't even know that like people spent 7 figures on their weddings. And so like, yeah, there are so many tiers within the luxury market. Like Taylor said, starting at like the $250,000 mark and then going up to millions. So it's a really like, it's just like a really dynamic part of the industry to be in. I think that, yeah, one of the toughest things that people do say is like, well, you kind of lose like the relationships with your couples. And I will say that like, based on like the trajectory of our business, I did hold on to that a lot. Like I would say like, oh, but I love my couples at this like $5,000 price point. Like, oh, I love my couples at my $7,500 price point. And I would just like hover there for a while because I enjoyed them. But I also enjoy like my clients now, like even though it feels like more of like a business relationship rather than like a close-knit friendship, like I'm probably not like going to remain like friends with many of the clients that we book now, just because it's so much of just like I said, a business relationship, like a transactional thing. Like you are there for their wedding day and like you're serving them really well, and you're just, it's a new level of professionalism, and like they expect that of you, and like you just expect that with with the job. But, and it's not saying that it's a bad thing. Like, there's other parts of the luxury market that are so much better than like when I worked in the mid-level and lower level things that just feel easier. Like, you don't have to bring lights to a wedding. Like, all the lighting is built in for you, or just like everything is so beautiful. I think I listened to a podcast that like Le Rev was on recently, and he was saying that like your work just like automatically like just gains so much more, like just becomes more beautiful because of like the scale of the event and how much of like those details. It's like not to say like their work didn't get like, not to say they didn't get better over the years. Like, they did say like it did, but they're like, just being in the room and shooting those beautiful things, like it just explodes your work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's incredible, and I love hearing you guys, just talk about what you've been doing and how, Taylor, being newer. I say newer, but I mean, you've been doing this for over half a decade. So you've been doing it for a while too. But just hearing you and like lighting fires, under each other's butts too a little bit, And now I'm sure Kelley's going to book a $20,000 wedding, and Taylor's gonna be like, okay, now I have a new goal, or like you just help each other and all that stuff. That's really cool. We're going to shift now into our question of the day, presented by Wedding Post House. And if you would like to submit a question of the day, all you need to do is go to howtofilmweddings.com/questions, and we will read your question on air and talk about it with our guests.
It's a guarantee. We will read it, no matter what you write.
Sure. So
Nick said it.
I did. So here are our question, and Taylor, we'll start with you since Kelley just spoke. What is one step that our listeners should be taking or thinking about to head into the luxury market? Like, if you at the ground level they want to go that way, what do you suggest for them?
Oh my goodness, it's I don't know. There's not really like a first step because they all kind of like work together in tandem. Okay. But I would say you really can't accomplish anything if you don't know where you're going, right? So really nailing down the direction. Luxury can look a lot of ways. I know that Osiris and Michelle of Modern Love Productions, you guys had them on the podcast. They were in your mastermind. They were in Elevate too, so they were my students too. And I love the trajectory of their business. They're doing luxury, but like in a really like with a twist, right? Like they're moodier and kind of more edgy, whereas some weddings are more bright and airy and maybe more classic, right? So really determining like what is the best fit for you, what's going to make you happy, maybe taking into account whether you want to travel or if you want to really narrow down to like your local market, really taking a look at what you want your business to look like is the first step, and like finding maybe who your ideal client is. Ideal client is something that's like, it grows with you. So you're always going to be like reworking and redefining who your ideal client is. I would say like season after season, you're going to really start to like narrow down on what that looks like. But from there, I would say finding vendor partners or creative partners who are already serving these types of clients and making these types of weddings happen, and finding ways to build relationships with them. And I know that's so vague, but it's a long game. You guys are all about the crock pot method, right? So it is truly, it takes time, but that's the first step, I would say.
Yeah. And then just to add to that too, like going after that ideal client, what ignites you? Like, what are, like when you book a wedding, like you think about like your wedding that you have this year, and what's the one you're most excited for and why? Like, is it because it's in a certain area? Like Taylor said, if you want to do destination work, is it because of the creative team that's putting together the event? And just honing in on that. So like then just from there, aligning your brand so that it matches your ideal client or that ideal planner that you want to work with, and looking at a lot of those brands within the industry, but also outside of the industry. Like, what are some of your favorite brands in like real life that are luxury brands, and using those as inspiration for your own business?
I love that. And I think like what I've seen, especially in the last, 4 or 5 years with Taylor, or watching people like Emma K Films, or like some of these people that come into the market and then like, boom, 2 or 3 years later, they're doing, the entry level luxury, like you're talking about. They're not necessarily charging 40 or 50 grand for their weddings yet, but like steps that I'm wondering, like if someone's out there and they're like, I've been doing this a couple of years, I want to get into the luxury space. I think the question we get a lot is just like, how do I go about making those relationships? I would love to hear either of you, maybe a story of what you like, when a door opened for you to get you to progress, and like what got you ready for that. Were there any moments in either of your brands where you're like, I got myself ready, this opportunity presented, or like, how'd you get yourself in the room with these people? Maybe just some advice on like, I want to connect. I know my brand. What do I do now? I love tossing it to both of you at the same time.
I know, we're like a mess.
Okay. I would say, okay, so for me personally, I got really lucky, honestly. I am very intentional with things like Instagram and my branding, and I really try to make it look a certain way so that it appeals to the right people. I have gotten really lucky where some big planners, I don't know how they found me on Instagram. I can't tell you which hashtag it was or how they found me, but I know they found me on Instagram somehow. Like I did a wedding with Beth Helmstetter last year. I did one with Rebecca Gardner, and really just capitalizing on any opportunity that can come your way. So the Beth Helmstetter wedding, she reached out. I was actually booked that day. It was going to be a 2-day event. Boys to Men were performing. It was like this crazy thing. And I was booked on the wedding day, but I was available for the welcome party where Boys to Men was going to come perform. And I actually called, shout out to Julia Kittner. I actually called her and I was like, hey, would you be willing to fly out and lead shoot on the wedding day? Like, this is a big opportunity for me and my brand. Like, would you be willing to do this? And she was like, yeah, absolutely. So I like took a risk, and I didn't like really make that much money because I spent so much money on like flying a team in, but I really wanted to capitalize on this amazing opportunity. I would have probably wouldn't get another chance with Beth Helmstetter specifically ever again. So I really wanted to like do everything I could to like impress her and get in her good graces and everything. And Julia did a great job leading the wedding day and everything, and over delivering to Beth and their word of mouth with the planners that she has relationships with, I think has paid off. We forget that planners are just like us. Like, they have their Facebook groups and their group chats and all of their things, and they're tossing around names when they're looking for vendors too. And, really just serving whoever comes your way is probably like the most straightforward way to do it, because people talk and you want to be brought up in conversation as much as possible in a good way. So I would say that's like my best example. Kelley, do you have one?
Yeah, like I would say like when we first started, so 2010, like Instagram didn't exist. There was such a different level of growth. Like I felt like your growth was on a slower pace because things were just slower in general. Like social media wasn't as quick as things are. Like there wasn't all of these other like avenues to focus your growth into. So from the very beginning, like our approach was always that we just wanted to form a reputation that like preceded us in the most positive way possible. So, and I still think that we take that too. And I look back at like weddings that we, said yes to that like maybe weren't the greatest weddings, but we did our best work possible. And we just made sure that like we were a huge team player on the wedding day. And like, no, it wasn't like a portfolio piece wedding, but like I'm going to treat it like it was. And I'm going to do everything I can to ensure the best client experience possible. And then in turn, like 6 years later, like that bride's sister's roommate now has hired Mindy Weiss as her wedding planner, and then has remembered like the lasting reputation and like just the experience from like watching her roommate's sister's wedding video, and then decided to hire us as well. And so that was like a huge opportunity for us that like it just came down the pipeline later. But like I just think that like it's such a large industry, but so tightly knit. And so just ensuring that, you are really just, you know, just being a good person, honestly. Just like being a good person and like kind to everybody. Like, I don't even care if it's like the wait staff, like at the wedding or whatever. Like, I just think that one of the things that can be really missed, I think like as filmmakers, like we're artists and we are artists, but we're also in the hospitality industry. And how like, it's just really important to treat people with just like an exceptional client experience. And so that's like this wasn't even Taylor. Taylor, I don't even know if I told you this, but like I was talking to another female filmmaker a couple of years ago, and we were just talking randomly like through Facebook DMs, and I was like, gosh, like there's just like a certain area of education that I feel like I'm like, I would love to form an education like platform of some kind or group and never talk about gear once. Like, because I don't even know if like, I just think that like there's so much missing in like client experience and hospitality that like grows your business exponentially in a whole different direction that like gear can't. And so
100%.
Yeah, I'm like, I always joke with people like second shooters that have come on and helped us, and they're like asking us questions about my camera, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm the most like untechy videographer you'll ever meet.
Sure. I think it wasn't it Tyler Harrington that we had on the podcast a long time ago, and you know he's tight with Caitlin James and you know some other photographers in the East, and he was like, I'm in a lot of videography and photography groups, and it's really interesting because most of the conversation in videography groups centered around gear and what to use and like that kind of stuff. In the photography groups, especially like the higher up photography groups, they were all like, what do we do for gifts and how do we serve and how do we make them feel right and that kind of, and I definitely can see a shift coming through our industry where people are understanding the importance of that and get, like just because I can deliver in 4K, like that doesn't matter if I don't make them feel great and I don't, do well. I really love, Kelley, what you said about, just I was great, 6 years ago, and then, something fell in my lap later, Taylor, where you taking that opportunity of, I will never get to work this planner again. I'm booked, but I'm gonna fly someone. We get so concerned about like myself right here in the now that we don't think of that long-term thing. And if someone said, "Oh, you had this big opportunity," it was a multi-million-dollar wedding, 250 plus, whatever it was. It was like, I actually lost money on that, and people were like, what? Like that doesn't make sense. But you do a good job, and now you don't know what can happen down the pipeline. You don't know what can happen down the road. And now you are getting emails from planners saying, hey, what's your availability? Are you booked on this day? Send me over pricing, that sort of stuff. I actually got an email from a planner the other day, just basically asking me that, hey, here's my couple, here's the location. Can you send over pricing information, that sort of stuff? And it's not something that I like deal a lot with, is planners reaching out to me on behalf of their couple. I'm starting to get that a little bit more and more, but for the most part, it's still the clients reaching out. So if people, maybe they've been flirting with the luxury space a little bit, they're kind of wading into that space, and now more planners and stuff are reaching out for them on behalf of their clients. Do you guys have any suggestions or resources or anything like that to help people where planners are now starting to reach out to them?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest things is for them to understand that, yes, that is very normal. Like when you're entering into like next tier of the industry, and a lot of times that comes with the client having a higher wedding spend, and in turn that means that they're having a wedding planner that's helping them, guide them through all of those selections for their vendors. They're working with them on design, things like that. My husband had a really good point when we were talking about I think we were talking about something about I saw something in a Facebook group about a filmmaker being really frustrated that the planner wouldn't let them have communication with the client. And he brought it back to working with, you say the client's building a home and you have this general contractor, right? The general contractor is like the wedding planner. So if you're the electrician on the job, you're not going to like go to the homeowner and tell them about all these different like things going on or all of that. Like you're going to relay it to the general contractor, who's then going to relay it to the homeowner if there's like, you know, the details that they need to know, the need to know basis of all that. So it's I just thought that was a really good like insight that he had on it. I'm like, that's very true. Like the wedding planners are the general contractors of the project. And just understanding that it's not the planner trying to step on your toes or take over a part of like your workflow. It's just they're trying to do their job serving the client, just like we're there trying to, you know, help serve the client as best possible. So just understanding that like our clients are very busy professionals, like successful, busy professionals, and they have hired a planner to lift those responsibilities off of their plate. And so that's what they're expecting from their planner, is to like gather the information as far as collections, availability, all that stuff. So it's very common for us to like not really have much, not many conversations with our clients. And sometimes you do, it's up to the client. So just, you know, respecting the wishes of the client. And if it's through a planner, that's through the planner. And if it's through them, then they've chosen that they want to get to know their vendors.
Yeah, and we definitely realize that it's a huge shift. Like you spent all these years running your business one way, right? Like really only connecting with the client, and maybe they have a day of coordinator. And all of a sudden, one day there's like this shift, and now you're really communicating with the planner. And we realize that can take a lot of people by surprise. So we actually have created a free download that we would love to offer the How to Film Weddings listeners. It's essentially like a flow chart where we show you if a planner asks for something or communicates with you like in one way, how to respond or what the next steps are. And it's like a choose your own adventure where you kind of like go down and it helps guide you through that communication process all the way from like your initial inquiry through film delivery. Because again, we know that every situation is different. So it's like a choose your own kind of thing, so it will fit everybody. But we think that will be really helpful in guiding you along this new venture of communicating with planners instead of clients. So,
yeah.
And where did they go to find that bad boy? In the show notes? We'll link it in
the show notes. Yes, please.
Okay, cool. Love it. I wanted to say too, I love the idea of like the general contractor, and like I again, we see it with our group, 15,000 strong now. I mean, it's a pretty big group. Lots of people want to focus solely on gear or, you know, certain things, and like it feels like they're just things are flying over their heads that are like really important. And like the mindset of like, well, the client's not too rude to want to like talk to you. They've hired a general contractor to handle everything. And yeah, like if I've got a general contractor at my house that I trust with the design in my house, of course I think the electrician's great, and the person doing the countertops and the person doing the plumbing, whatever. But that doesn't mean I need to be best friends with them, and I've paid a contractor so that I don't have to do all of that work on my own. And so when you start looking at your planners, your connections with planners, photographers as the people that you're trying to start selling to now, and you're starting to like build those relationships, it's much easier to book a wedding, especially a big one, whenever you've got the relationship and they say, oh, this couple's going to love working with Taylor. Like this vibe, I've already vetted them. You know, you're going to love Taylor. They're doing all that work for you. And the hardest part after 16 years of doing this is like, it's hand to mouth. You work, you get paid, you eat, you got to go work, you get paid. And there's like a lot of referrals and things like that. But if you can get on the list of even 4 or 5 planners that each send you 2, 3, 4 weddings, you've got a full schedule. And so I love that freebie idea. I love what you all are doing with the Level Up brand and like really focusing in on luxury. I think it's something that's highly needed in our industry. And I honestly, I'm just really excited with both of you being doers and seeing what you're going to do with this brand. So we definitely appreciate you being on. Before we sign off for the day, any final thoughts you'd like to say? And then also, where can people connect with you?
I just want to speak to the filmmakers out there who think maybe the luxury space doesn't have room for you. We actually just on Instagram stories just did like where you can like submit your question thing, and people were asking about various things in the luxury market. And one question stuck out to me, basically saying, I'm not a fancy person. I live in a rural area. I have kids. Like, my life is not glamorous. Like, I feel like I can't fit into the luxury space. And to that, I'm just going to say that really shouldn't matter. Anybody can align their brand within the luxury space. It doesn't mean that you have to be like a fancy person. I drive a minivan. I have 3 kids. Like, that's what my life looks like. My clients don't, but that's what my life looks like. But you can still take steps to align your brand and your visibility to fit within the luxury space. And whatever your personal life looks like should not stop you from pursuing that if that's what you want to do. So that's just my 2 cents. I'm obviously very passionate about telling everyone, like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. There's no reason why you can't. But yes, if you want to find us, we are at the Level Up Co. on Instagram. And if you search Level Up Your Wedding Business, what are we calling it, Kelley? Oh my gosh, I can't even remember what it is in like the podcasting apps. But we'll link it in the show notes. It's called the Level Up Podcast. We have our ducks in a row very clearly.
No, I love that you guys are so like just getting going in this, and I asked you to be on like so quickly just because it's like I want you to be able to look back at this and be like, oh my goodness, we were just getting going. Look how many things we've. I do want to close with the idea, as you were talking just then, as you said earlier, is like you were looking for somebody that was a doer, and what I have noticed and why I get so excited about certain people in the education space is like, for me, I'm a doer. That's what I relate very strongly. The Enneagram 3 in me is very into that. And I think there's just a lot of people that are like, they are judgmental or point fingers, or like, well, they don't deserve to be in that spot, and they don't, and there's just a lot of talk out there. And the only person out there, if you're listening to this, that's going to change you and your situation is you. You have to start taking steps. If you live in a rural area and you realize that you need to join some networking groups where you've got to drive a couple hours a few times a month, go do that if that's what you really want to do. If you want to fly to the Engage conferences or be part of networking groups or WIPA or whatever it is, like, you have to go out and start taking those steps. And Taylor, you were like, I got lucky. Someone reached out, and it's like, it's so funny to me how people get lucky all the time that are the ones that are out there doing, taking steps, swinging, missing. Who cares if you miss the ball? You're swinging, you're taking steps, and you're doing. So if you're out there listening, hopefully this is encouraging. Go follow these two. They're going to do great things. I've been listening. I've listened to all of your new podcasts so far with the two of you. Good stuff. Learned about your trip to Tahoe the other day. I learned about your birthday. It's great stuff, but great on your prices, different things you're already doing. That's been helpful to me. So thank you guys both for being on. Nick, anything you want to add before we land this plane?
No.
You can say bye.
Yeah, just thank you. Thank you for coming on and hanging out with us today. And we're excited to see what happens next to you guys.
Thanks so much, guys.
Well, Taylor and Kelley, Tay and Kel, I don't know, they were giving each other names before we hit record on there. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the How to Film Weddings podcast today. Go and check out the Level Up Co. Another thing that we have on our website that you can go purchase is our email templates. We have 60 plus email templates. It will help save time in your business. If you are interested in that, head over to howtofilmweddings.com. Click on the little store button and pick those up. John, it has been incredible. It has been great to hang out with you. I appreciate you taking the time. Listeners, thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the podcast. Until next week, until next time, we will see ya.
See ya.
Are you looking for a better way to deliver your wedding films? Look no further. Our friends over at VidFlow provide the most flexible video delivery solution on the market. VidFlow is pay-per-use with no large upfront costs or commitment, and you can cancel at any time. VidFlow offers a premium viewing experience for all of your couples, accessible on mobile, tablet, desktop, as well as their very own suite of TV apps. Each project comes with 10 years of hosting and an experience for your couples that will blow them away. Head over to howtofilmweddings.com/vidflow, where you can save 20% off a yearly business membership by using promo code HTFW20. Stop delivering your films the old-fashioned way. Give your couples something to rave about by using VidFlow.